I've seen the dark side of the moon. I don't have to prove anything in that direction. My ego is not that important. It used to be everything. I was egocentric. I was driven by my own lust and my own ambition for when I was in the dark alleys. I was an evil person. I've seen the dark side of the moon, as I say. I don't have to be there again. So whatever the world is throwing at me nowadays, as long as it's on the light side of the moon, I pretty much think I can handle it, yeah. So I'm very grateful for my past as well. And I'm very happy for my present, and I'm very excited for my future.
Welcome to CC, the podcast where you see what others see.
Hi there. Good morning. So today, what are we talking about? Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? Sassy here. Is anyone there? Hi, my name is Sassy. I'm based in Berlin, and I want to welcome you to CC, the podcast where you see what others see. In this season, we're talking about guts. And today we'll talk about gastronomy, delicious food, turning the kitchen into a realm of creativity, love, and growth, and moreover, about having the guts to turn your life around and the ability to bring joy to others rather than fear. And guess with whom we'll be talking?
Our guest today is Three-Michelin-star Danish chef Eric Vildgaard, a culinary genius known worldwide for his avant-garde approach to modern cuisine, exceptional talent, precision and dedication to creating unforgettable dining experiences. Together with his wife Tina Krag Vildgaard, he owns Culinary, named one of the world's 50 best restaurants in 2022, a testament to his visionary leadership and relentless pursuit of perfection. Ranked at number 12 amongst his peers globally by Top 100 Best Chef Awards, Eric Vildgaard is renowned in the culinary world for his bold fusion of flavours and stunning presentations. Meanwhile, he continues to push the boundaries of haute cuisine, transforming each dish into a sensory masterpiece. His work is defined by elegance, emotion, and a deep respect for nature and its responsibly sourced ingredients. An engagement for which he was recognised with the La Liste's Hidden Gem Awards in Paris, while 2 days later being announced as Restaurant of the Year in Denmark by the Danish Dining Guide. Chef Vildgaard's high regard for his team has gradually made him an inspiring mentor for younger generations. He's living proof of the transformative power of cooking, a safe place where happiness is created through love and commitment. His personality is reflected in the name of his restaurant, which means down to earth, and in the authenticity of his character, making it clear that what he shares through his cooking is real. As he himself says, "If I don't get goosebumps when I taste my creations, they don't make it onto the menu."
Eric, thank you for the opportunity to talk to you. Welcome.
Hello, and thank you for inviting me.
I would like to start today's interview with a sweet poem about food and gratitude, wrote by Lebanese-American poet Khalil Gibran, born in Lebanon in 1883. It is called On Eating and Drinking, the last part of which goes like this. And when you crush an apple with your teeth, say to your heart, your seeds shall live in my body, and the buds of your tomorrow shall blossom in my heart, and your fragrance shall be my breath. And together we shall rejoice through all the seasons. And in the autumn, when you gather the grapes of your vineyard for the winepress, say in your heart, I too am a vineyard, and my fruit shall be gathered for the winepress, and like new wine I shall be kept in eternal vessels. And in winter, when you draw the wine, let there be in your heart a song for each cup. and let there be in the song a remembrance for the autumn days, and for the vineyard, and for the winepress. Eric, thinking about the whole process of cooking, from choosing the ingredients to reflecting on the origins of the product and then preparing a meal, using all of your senses, touch, smell, sight, taste, and even hearing. Could you tell us what cooking means to you?
Cooking to me is an expression of my inner person. All dishes, all servings, everything I give through the kitchen is a love letter. It's a testament to how I want to make people feel. It's in some way my personal Billy Elliot, the coal miner's son who dances a ballet. Because I come from rough background, very tough environment, where it was not purposely making people happy. On the other side, it was like making people sad, which was something we really worked on. Spent a great time of my life being a very bad person. I was searching for an outlet, finding out who I am. And cooking became that outlet. Back when I was really a young, troubled mind, I was intrigued by being in a kitchen because the structure in a kitchen is the same as in a gang, more or less. But the outcome is very different. So it's the same base, but with two different perspectives. But to be fostered in an environment where, you need to be tough, to not be facing a lot of danger, then it's hard to be dancing your quotation sign, your own ballet. Because, if you talk about feelings with big tattooed guys who is out to kill you, no, then they probably want to go at you, yeah? So it's a different story. So food for me is really who I am inside. What I'm cooking is my inner person.
Eric, about Khalil Gibran's poem, I like it very much because he doesn't talk about food as a mere object, but as part of a circle of life to which we all belong to. It reminds me also about time passing and how everything needs the right amount of time to develop. I thought about the time a baby needs to be formed, and also even how to breathe correctly, how we need time to understand, to digest, to comprehend, to reflect, and to heal, and even to get to know ourselves too. And thinking about this, I came with the idea to share something with you. Jose Hernandez is a scientist and engineer who co-invented the first mammography machine. He is the son of illegal immigrants who worked in the fields in the US and who at 10 years of age dreamed of reaching the stars. He ultimately did so aboard NASA's Discovery space shuttle. After experiencing being in outer space and having rotated 91 times a day, and likewise having experienced the harvesting seasons as a kid, and today as a farm owner himself, I was curious about his take on time, and this is what he answered.
Roger.
Well, my take on time is, number one, you can't cheat time. Time is time. Time's going to come and go, and you're going to come and go with it. So there's no sense wasting energy in trying to delay time, delay the inevitable, because we all have a certain amount of time here on this precious earth of ours. And this is where I always tell folks that it's great to set goals for yourself, but if you're not enjoying the journey towards achieving that goal, my argument is you probably picked the wrong goal, because it's about 90% of your time and effort is the journey to reaching that goal. And if you're enjoying that journey, because if you're not enjoying it, chances are you're wasting your time. And time is so precious, we can never get it back to ourselves. And we gotta do what we love.
And so you were talking about that past of being in a dark alley. And sometimes when we look at the past, things seem to be reduced in time as we were looking into a film. And I'm very interested to know, Eric, and given what you said also about cooking and being your passion now and who you are actually, and in life in general, what is your view on time?
I think time is a currency in our industry and in life that we give each other, because we can always gain more ingredients, more money, more of all material things we can get as much as we eager once. But time spent is time gone. So I never value a meal in money. I know we are running a business and my wife is luckily very good at that. But for me, people taking the time to come to the restaurant, to receive the food we have made, but it's a transaction of time. Because people, they prepare themselves for coming here many days in advance, dressing up on the day, coming into the restaurant, spending their time here, spending time together with their loved ones and with us. And we have, behind all dishes, there's a process of time as well, where people have spent their time going diving for our scallops, risking their life. That currency, time, is the most valuable thing we have. And it came to my notice when I started cooking. Time is everything.
As we heard, Jose also talked about loving what you do, about being absolutely passionate about it. How has being cooking with drive and passion rewarded you in life?
I think that comes very naturally to me. So my reward is to get up in the morning and do what I love. And by having that outlet and finding time for beauty, because this is what I think we create, it's a beautiful moment. It's not just a dish of food. And that gives me an inner peace. And that inner peace I can transfer into my family life, to my time with my colleagues, and with everything I do in life. I am at peace because I have that outlet of feeling that I give something to people which has importance, because it's a moment of time. Because if you look at all your greatest moments in life, when you turn 30, what birthday gift did you get? You don't remember, but you remember where you went to eat and what you had for dinner, most likely, because you shared it with some very good friends. It's a very good example of, how important, not the meal itself, but the time spent around the meal, how important it is. And I think it's very giving to share that with other people.
Someone said once, life without love is not life at all. The man who said this is better known as the author of aesthetic and technical masterpieces such as the Mona Lisa and the Last Supper. Today, however, I want to talk about Leonardo da Vinci as someone who challenged the status quo, a man who pushed boundaries not only of art, but also of science and anatomy. And little did I know that in addition to being a scientist and a musician too, he was a cook as well, an avant-garde cook, of course, who invented the first vertical spit roaster and other useful kitchen gadgets. 500 years before modernist cuisine, Leonardo da Vinci kitchen's notebooks showed a world of cooking in a kitchen turned into a sort of studio and lab, where food was prepared efficiently, beautifully, and ingeniously. I could go so far as saying that his meticulous presentation and emphasis on fresh and simple ingredients could make him a forerunner of Nouvelle Cuisine, centuries before its formal emergence in the 1970s. Also interesting was the fact that Da Vinci served himself and his assistant simple, modest meals made with high-quality ingredients. And from reading his shopping lists, I would venture to guess that he was interested in the healing properties of food and probably followed a specific diet very similar to today's longevity diets. 550 years later, science is beginning to confirm that diet is indeed a game changer. Professor John Cryan, a leading figure in neuroscience known for his research on the gut microbiome brain axis, who, as Da Vinci, pushed boundaries to explore, among other things, the impact of the microbiota on stress, mood, and mental health, left a question for you.
Hi, Eric Vildgaard. This is John Crine here. And I'm just wondering, does understanding the biology of how food positively affects the body inform ingredient choices in cooking?
The short answer is yes, but it's not something that takes too much space and time for cooks in general, I think. But here in the restaurant, we start every meal with raw seafood, because within a scallop, there's like billions of microbiotic bacteria, which starts the digestion. And so we have a lot of guests who comments on it with it, because we do it intentionally, of course, but we don't explain to guests why we do it. But when they are done with their meal here, they get up from the table, they're uplifted and not like pouring sauce out of their ears. So of course there's science behind that, in that sense that we think about, if we can start your digestion process a little bit ahead of time, then when you get to the more heavier dishes, then of course your body is ready to absorb them, so you don't get, meat sweat kind of. Now we don't have meat in the menu, but the feeling that you have sometimes after an extensive menu can be a little bit like, I said, pouring sauce out of your ears. And by knowing that thing with the microbiotics in your gut that will make your digestion speed up, it's very important for the conception of the meal in a restaurant you are now.
That's brilliant. And talking about the quality of the products, I'd like to know more about the philosophy and principles behind your creations. Do you enjoy enhancing the flavor of the product with additional ingredients, or do you prefer a more straightforward approach that focuses on the essential elements of the product, like Da Vinci?
I focus very much on the product. My cuisine is known to be a product-driven cuisine. It's always based upon the best ingredients we can get our hands on. And we have this hashtag, like the social media branding, saying only the best for the guest. It's not a catchphrase. It's an ethos we live by in the restaurant. So if better is possible, good is not good enough. And it comes down to the ingredient. And I think as a chef, over time, you learn how to restrain yourself and remove more and more elements, the better you get. And, we have one dish right now in the menu, which is a langoustine, which is grilled and then a sauce. And I mean, it's the best product and, of course, the best sauce. But it has to be like that, because why would you try to mask a beautiful ingredient? If you go for the best, it shouldn't be necessary.
And your dishes are so delicate and magical. I mean, when I look at photographs of them, they look like fairy gardens seen through a magnifying glass. They're like samples of distant, unimagined universes. But at the same time, they feel so close, so familiar. So my question is, how do you find the balance between bringing something magical to the table and at the same time keeping it simple and real?
I think about food all the time. It's like in all aspects of my being, it's like food. But I never force an ingredient. That's, I think, is my secret. I always let the ingredient kind of tell me what it wants to be. And then I try to enhance that, like the proportions, like the quality of the ingredient, by adding layers of texture and flavor around it, which never takes away the key flavor of the ingredient. Because, as I say, if we have, for example, we have Napa tuna right now in the menu, it's the most beautiful piece of fish. Why would I try to mask it instead of letting people taste how does the best tuna in the world taste? It's like we need to find restraint sometimes, and sometimes when you have an ingredient that calls for more support, we will add the support by giving a little bit of flavor profiling around it, which will make it stand up on the pedestal where it belongs. Sometimes it doesn't need any help. It just needs to be transformed into being a dish.
I think, Eric, that when you say you bring the product up front, not trying to overdo its properties or mask it, it shows too your conviction and compromise with nature's beauty and the guests who will eat what you've cooked. And this speaks for the name of your restaurant, which I hope I will speak correctly. Joanna?
You would say Jordnær in Danish, but Jordnær is okay.
Okay. So Joanna, because my Danish friends taught me how. And they told me it means down to earth.
Yes.
So that really translates into what you were saying. And you mentioning how you highlight the quality of the product and also this dialogue in the creation process, how you make it in general about the product itself, remind me of a concert that I recently went with my family in the Philharmonic here in Berlin. And I'm going to tell you about it. So we were very lucky because this was conducted by Kirill Petrenko. So I was watching him conduct and I was absolutely mesmerized by the way he gently moved his hands. And I could definitely feel how this man was able to understand music and portray it through the movement of his hands. It was pure poetry. Because you see, what came from his conducting was really not about himself, but about the musical composition. It came from a conviction and a compromise with the music. And this allowed him to establish a sort of bridge of communication with the orchestra and transmit all of this to the audience too. And I've asked this question to orchestral conductors before. I asked them, how did they know when their ego is getting in the way when conducting? And in your case, I like to ask, when you're creating a menu, let's say a signature dish, which can be very tempting in that sense, how can you be sure that it is creativity and not hubris or your ego that is taking the lead in your cooking?
Number one, I only apply techniques for the greater purpose of a dish, never for just showcasing my ability to apply a technique, number one, which in many cases is, when I look worldwide, there's a lot of times where I see food where I think, if the chef eats this, will he be happy himself? And my MO is, I only cook what I want to eat myself. And I don't cook for my ego, never. I cook for the guest and I cook for the ingredient. And it is about, sometimes when we overthink a dish, I can force a dish into the menu because chefs, they can stand and I can do a testing on a dish and I can say, I set it up. If it doesn't work, it doesn't hit the menu. But if I would be the other style of chef, I would try to work on it and try to force it in because I have an agenda towards I want to showcase that I can work on sea cucumber. But if I don't like sea cucumber, why would I put it in my menu? So sometimes just to be able to do something which will make people say baffled, in that sense, and just trying to force your energy into a direction, then it comes off a little bit hollow, in my opinion. And cooking is a direct communication from your heart to your guest. And, if it's not there, it's not there. You can't force it. And if you're trying to force it, then you're putting your ego in front of the dish. Then you surely will taste it.
Absolutely. It's really about shedding the many layers of ego and allowing the creative process to unfold without overshadowing the product, which is clearly what you were saying, also the star of Jordana and the driving force behind your philosophy.
I think my philosophy is based upon, being humble to nature, because nature is, and I know many chefs have been quoted saying this, but nature is the true artist. So if we work close to nature and by ensuring the quality of what we work with is, and quality and sustainability goes hand in hand in many cases because, if you have a creel called langoustine, it is a better quality for many reasons because it haven't suffered in a trawling net, it haven't been scraped over the seabed where it has been filled up with sand, almost drowning in sand. So when you eat it as a guest, you will find sand inside the flesh of the langoustine. We also don't damage the seabed by using creels. All our ingredients come from sustainable sources. And by that, for sure, it's the better quality because, we only take what we need and we don't leave it like a burning field behind us. So in respect of nature, we cook with nature.
And talking about creativity and originality and a little bit of hubris, The big names in the pantheon of gastronomy have each their own thing going on. No, because everybody wants to be creative and original and so on. And so Chef Blumenthal, for example, has a lovely way to put it. And he says, eating is a multi-sensory experience. He means it too, I think, because his most amazing idea, one of them, was the introduction of music into a dish. And then you have the wonderful folks over at Chicago's Alinea, led by the amazing chef Grant Agats, who really took molecular gastronomy to the next level with an amazing signature dish created by Chef Bagale, which is a floating helium field dessert made from dehydrated apples and sugar that floats or something like this. And when I read about people's experiences in Jordana, I kept seeing words like authenticity, love, and happiness. And it is said that when you reserve at Jordana, or at least this was true shortly ago, that you receive a confirmation text that says, you will now be part of a love story through which we will take you on a journey of flavors and we will introduce you to nature through the best products it can offer. Eric, those are big words. And yet, in the way this is written, it feels real. You said that every dish you create needs to make you feel joy, right? And that you also say that you cook happy dishes. And I want to ask you, what exactly do you mean by this?
If you eat something and you feel emotional eating it, because food is also memories for everyone. And we all have a relation to a flavor. If you have something with cooked apples, the most people will be reminded of their grandma who cooked you an apple pie. It's a very simple line to draw, because we all have that warm apple pie kind of feeling. There's a memory around that. Or strawberries with creams, it's a summer thing with your friends or your family and all this. But number one, you take the good ingredients. I put up a dish and I eat it. And if I don't feel that excitement eating it, if I don't relate to it with emotions, eating it, not creating it, but eating it, then it's not a good dish. Because I am the filter from the kitchen to the guest. And hopefully I will be so good that I can have my guest feeling a little bit of how I feel, creating the dish for them by having them to eat the dish. And that is what I mean about happy food, that you will be emotional eating it and you can feel that there is a lot of passion and care behind it to the whole process of the creation. It's very simple, actually. I just cook because I love it and I want people to feel loved by my cooking. So it's very simple. So when we say we take people on a part of our love story, it's because the one who saved my life and the one who made me realize I was a good chef was my wife. And that's no longer than 8.5 years ago.
That's so beautiful. And also that you're able to establish in complete authenticity a dialogue between your creations, also that they're free of ego and honoring nature, and you're able to pass it on to your guests at the restaurant. That is an absolute act of love.
Yeah, and the funny part is that over time, when I reflect back, now we're talking about it, I can see I have had some creations. I have had some dishes in the menu, which has been out of expectation of what I had to create, something which I thought was the way to go about it, because I've seen other chefs go that direction. And, and every time I have done something like that in my career, I have always felt from the guest that that was the weakest dish. It has never made it to the top. You know what I mean? It's always been hollow because it's not made with intention. It's made by my ego.
Yeah. And like your awareness was probably blocked. You were more intellectualizing things.
And it can be beautiful to eat that sort of food because it is, of course, you get to taste some techniques and all that. But in reality, it's stale. It's dead,
Mm-hmm.
It's not vibrant. And it needs to be vibrant, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And at least at my restaurant. So I think that is why when people say authenticity and originality, because I see it with many of my colleagues worldwide. When I eat at French restaurants, I get like blown away because I kind of feel their personality through their dishes. And that is what you look for when you want to go out and eat, because we all eat 3 to 5 times a day, 6 times a day. I don't know how many times people eat, but food is essential for us. And we have a very odd relations towards eating, because as my trade, being a chef, people come to a fine dining restaurant and they say, it's expensive. Yeah, it's expensive to eat in a fine dining restaurant compared to eating a bowl of oatmeal. They both feed the purpose of being a fuel for your body. Yeah, so in that sense, there is like this very massive gap between dining and dining.
Yeah. So would you say that joy, then happiness and love are in some that own special thing going on in Jordana?
I think that all chefs who cook, and hopefully many of my colleagues does, cooks from our heart, because we want to bring across like our inner feelings. And I am trying to do that here without intention, because I just know, because you're saying it and people are saying it around me, that it's very like, well, that's how people view the restaurant. There's never been the purpose to be famous for doing what we're doing. It has never been the purpose. But all of a sudden we gain success with that. And at some point in life, when you get success, you get a little bit star blind. But I am so fortunate that I have my wife next to me who can pull me back and then make sure my ego doesn't come in the way of the ambition.
Julie Soler was an outstanding maître d'hôtel with great organizational abilities and an exceptional way with people. El Bulli, which he co-founded, was not only a restaurant and a concept, but a laboratory and a project that changed the course of the history, not only in Spanish gastronomy, but of gastronomy in general and forever. Before Julie Soler died in 2015, Chef Ferrat Adrià said about him, "Finding a partner like him that is almost impossible. And he has been as, if not more, important than me in this story." You, Eric, as well, have in your restaurant Jordana a great partner who even sold a diamond ring and a watch, and we've been talking about her. She did that to pay for the chairs and cutlery of a restaurant, a project, today turned reality. A Three-Michelin-star restaurant and one of the best in the world. This partner of yours received the Michelin Nordic Welcome and Service Award as well. And she's not only co-founder of Jordana, but your partner in life as well. I think our listeners would love to know more about this special person. Who is she? And how she became a window for you to a better life.
My wife, Tina, is the keystone to everything I am and the restaurant transmits, because she showed me love, really for the first time in my life. And I really felt for her in a way which I can't describe. She gave me that ultimatum because I was living a little bit in both worlds when we met each other. A little bit still in the dark side and a little bit cooking, flirting with the old environment a little bit. And she got pregnant and she looked at me and said, "Now you need to make a decision. And this decision be for life. You need to go with your friends or you go with me." It was a very easy choice, and it still is. I walked down the road with her. And then she looked at me and said, "But what do you want to do?" And I said, "I want to open a restaurant." But I had no money at that time, and neither did she. And she said, "Okay, then we do it." And I was like, one thing is to say it, another thing is to say, "Okay, then we do it." And then she kind of facilitated the possibility for us to open it at the location where we are, because she had a friend and they had a meeting, and then all of a sudden, boom, 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 she come and picked me up back home, and she said, "I found the location." And we went to see the location where we are. The restaurant that was here before us was, to say the least, very ugly and a very worn out, and a hotel restaurant which had no ambition. So I came in the door and I was like, "What are we doing here?" And she looked at me with stars in her eyes and she said, "This is our new place." And I have to be honest, I got so offended because, when you think opening a restaurant and you have again, the ego sometimes takes over a little bit too much, especially for chefs. I was like, wow, you're not serious. And she looked at me and said, hey, how much do you have to offer besides your talent? I say nothing. Then this is your restaurant. And then we opened May 17. She was right all the way. And she's still right. And, and the love she showed me and shows me every day and shows our kids and staff and everybody around her is very inspiring. And that is what inspires the restaurant. If I cook with passion and love, it comes because she taught me what love is. Because love is not naive. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be blind. It doesn't have to be just like goofy, because that's when you're newly in love. But love over time is also building something, and creating something which has longevity. And then look at each other. Sometimes we wake up and look at each other and kiss each other. Sometimes we wake up and then say, but it's still love, over time, because love is not one singular moment. Love is part of life. And when you embrace that and you just take it in and accept that, it's not always sunny weather, then you also learn to appreciate the darker sides of the life, when things are not going your way, you find motivation in that as well. And that is all due to the fact that love is the driving force. Also, when you can't see the love and feel the love, then it's still there because it's like beating inside you.
You know what's beautiful, Eric? That you are so lucky to be loved like this, and also so lucky to be able to know it and to love back that way. It's not always like that.
I know that because I think this is a once in a lifetime for me. Yeah. It's also keeping me on my toes because I think I've been handed a chance, gifted with one chance by, if there's somebody in the sky or whatever who said, okay, he deserves a break. And, my life was not really good. And then I met this beautiful angel who transformed my life, gave me a beautiful family. And now look where we are, It's very magical. It is.
And I've come to recognize, I have to say, the value in being realistic. In what sense? We all have a tendency to repeat patterns of behavior. And you also shared that before meeting your wife, your life was complicated. An on and off situation, right? Pending between the kitchen and other kinds of life. Dark alleys, let's call it like this. And it takes a great deal of courage and determination, as well as perhaps a little bit of divine intervention, to undergo such a profound transformation in one's life. I believe it's important not to take that for granted, because as you said, that's an effort that goes every day. And the truth is, of course, that we cannot change our past, but that's okay. Because even if our past is painful, it's the embracement of the experience that makes us who we are. And it helps us also question ourselves, and it's also the key to getting to know ourselves, including also our darkest side. And I think you are one of those people, Eric, who really knows who they are. And it's a wonderful thing. And tell me, when thinking about the struggles you have overcome, what has been the greatest lesson that has made you the man you are today? And I do not mean being the 12th world's greatest chef, which is an amazing accomplishment, but I'm referring more importantly, a loving husband, a father of 6 children, and a mentor for younger generations. What has been the most important lesson?
The most important lesson is accepting that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to be not succeeding in all your goals. It's okay. And when you accept that, and it's very hard to accept that within yourself because your ego is always in the way. That is why we're also living in a world where we are so stressed and we are so pushed to the limit. But if you have somebody around you who says it's okay and loves you for who you are, that like as a person deep within your roots, then that is the most important lesson I've learned. It's like to love myself because, I'm being loved from the outside. Yeah. And then accept that I'm worth loving. And by that, I can see damaged souls, because it's easy for me to pick up when I meet a young chef who has troubles. And then, I can engage with him in a different way than probably the most other chefs can't, because I don't have that like old school structure within me, because, I've seen the dark side of the moon. I don't have to prove anything in that direction. My ego is not that important. It used to be everything. My ego was everything. I was egocentric. I was driven by my own lust and my own ambition for when I was in the dark alleys. I was an evil person. I've seen the dark side of the moon, as I say. I don't have to be there again. So whatever the world is throwing at me nowadays, as long as it's on the light side of the moon, I pretty much think I can handle it. Yeah. So I'm very grateful for my past as well. And I'm very happy for my present, and I'm very excited for my future. And I think that is a combination that is very important to find balance in. The most people are always looking forward to what's coming instead of enjoying where they are at the moment. And I think that is what we talked about earlier, a little bit of this being in time. You need to be present in time to accept and find beauty in time, because everything is time and love.
And Eric, I want to ask you if you could give us the recipe. Now that you're talking about time and love, how do you and Tina, your wife, both manage to raise, I think you have 6 kids? Is that correct?
6 kids between the two of us, yeah?
Yeah, and have a 3-Michelin-star restaurant going. How do you do that?
It's, again, and now it sounds a little bit corny, but time. You need to administer your time, and time is very important to us. It's like the most important value in our life, besides, love. Because if we focus on, let's say we have to travel to an event with the restaurant. Okay, we have to do it, we do it. Then it needs to be worth the time away from the kids. So we always measure the things we do in time being away from the kids, So if it's not worth it, if we don't find, okay, it's important, and if we have a need to be with the kids more than we have to go to an event in somewhere in the world, then we spend time with the kids, because there is this life balance where we are ambitious and the kids do suffer a little bit sometimes on the altar of time not being enough. So what we did, we said, okay, we're fully booked always. Let's close on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And that's, when we first said that in Denmark, said, okay, we're going to close on Saturday, people were thinking, you guys are insane. But we proved them wrong. So now many of our colleagues on 2 and 3-star level, they're closed on the weekend because they're fully booked on Tuesdays as well as they would be on a Saturday. So, your success is the time that you can spend with your family. So for me, we could cash in and be open 7 days a week. And then I could feed my ego a big car, and I could buy, a lot of materialistic things. But it's not as important as going to the forest, picking chestnuts with my son.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all about perspective, because people do think that we work a lot, and we do work a lot 4 days a week. But I have dedication when I'm off work. Then I'm 100% with my kids, or 100% where I am at the moment. Because I think that is the most important thing, to know the value of the time you spend and then spend it wisely.
You both live to the fullest. And someone who lived his life to the fullest too was a little boy born in 1944 in Seaham, County Durham in England. This little boy was born into poverty and hardship, dreamed of doing something extraordinary. This boy of a working-class family never thought his voice would take him to the world's best opera houses. From London's Royal Opera House to New York's Metropolitan Opera, he dazzled audiences and became one of the greatest baritones of his time. However, fame would not be this man's final destination. Being a man full of love and passion for life, as you, in his case, for the arts, he wanted more. So as a director, he became a mentor, sharing his knowledge with younger generations. Queen Elizabeth of England honored his amazing contribution to music and arts. This story of Sir Thomas Allen, that's the name of him, Sir Thomas Allen. You know that he is the character behind Billy Elliot, the musical and film you were talking about.
I did not know that.
And unlike Jose Hernandez, for Billy Elliot, we know in the film, it took a while for his father could understand his son's potential and spirit. And Eric, when you hear these stories or watch a movie like Billy Elliot, what do you think about your own story? You were talking already a little bit of it, but maybe you can tell us, what do you think about your own story? And what would you want your children and your team in Jordana to understand about them?
You can't fool nature. You can't work against destinies. You know, destinies will always, it's like a seed in the ground, under concrete. You know, over time, you can put concrete on top of a chisel and then it will still go through the concrete. Yeah, because it was destined to grow. But sometimes it takes longer time, depending on the amount of concrete it has to go through. And sometimes it doesn't happen because it dies out before, because not all roots have the strength to penetrate like that amount of concrete. But, nature has its way. And, if you're destined to be something, it will happen if you want it to happen. So I think that the symbiosis between us and the energy around us, like the nature, around us.
Do not try to deny who you are, like embrace it and follow.
Embrace it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, embrace who you are and trust in yourself. Because if you don't trust in yourself, who will trust you? Yeah, if you don't believe in your own project, how can you sell it to somebody? It's impossible.
You were talking about a seed blossoming and going through the concrete. And it's just like Billy Elliot in the film, who could not ignore the fact that music lived inside him, how his feet kept on moving. And for you, Eric, cooking was an occasional call, right? But you didn't always answer. So do you recall the first time when you had an aha moment, a serendipity moment, which made you realize that cooking was your safe place, a place where you belonged and where you ought to be?
I remember when I first got intrigued by the power of cooking was when I was sent to sail as a young teen because I was kicked out from a youth detention center. So the government didn't have any place to put me. So they were considering to put me in like an adult prison as a 15-year-old. And, it was not going to happen. They said so. They put me on a boat. And on that boat, there was only like real sailors and a Danish captain and Polish crew. And I was so bored. And I was like so troubled. I was there for a reason, like I hated the world and the world hated me. And I was like, out of boredom, I found this old cookbook and I found this recipe for this puff pastry pretzel called a Wales pretzel with a whipped cream and jam inside. And I made that because, I was like, I had to do something. There was nothing to do. I had to do something. There was no television, no nothing. I had to do something. So I did that. And, and I have always have like a focus. I am really focused on, if I want, when I was a criminal, I was a very good criminal because I could focus my energy into it. If I zoom in, then I'm very good at what I want to be. So I made this puff pastry pretzel, and I served it for the team, and they were so happy, And at that time, I remember that when I look back, that was when I realized that I could communicate something from within, like I could make people happy instead of sad. That was the time I realized I want to be a chef, but it took me then 26 more years to realize I had to do something professional about it.
So that was like the concrete.
Yes.
You were putting the layers you were putting in between your destiny.
Yes. Because, when there's also something about people's perception of you, and what they expect of you and what you think they expect. And when you are living off fear, because, when I was younger, I was misunderstood what respect is, because I thought fear and respect was the same thing. And back when I was a little bit in the dark alleys, I had a lot of fear around me. Now I have a lot of respect. And the respect is something you're given. Fear is something you take. Yeah. So the perspective is very different. And when I found the serenity of, this is my goal in life, was when I was coming into the kitchen where I met Tina. My friend, he picked me up because I was at home, just being damaged because my parents died and all that. And I came into this kitchen, and I was just, as soon as I stepped in the kitchen door, I could hear the guy on the hot section. He was frying some beef, but I could just hear the pan was screaming for, it was in pain,
Imagine that.
The pan was screaming. So I went there and said, "What are you doing?" And I just took over. It just pushed him away. I was an absolute asshole, probably, in his opinion. But it was just so natural for me to nurture this product, in the pan, And I think that call is something a chef can recognize. We are not just seeing a steak, we're seeing a whole circle of life in a pan. So if you overcook the steak and you make it sear too hard, it's and that passion, it's a part of life. And if we can transfer that into your personal life, as I'm trying to, then I do believe that you're on the right track at least.
When you're talking about all of this, it's really going into a subconscious level.
Yes.
Of life. It's amazing.
Subconscious feeling, it comes from within. And it is more than just a skill. It's more than just a set of skills. It is something which is, it's part of your soul. And it's the same way you started talking about breathing, it is the same, so when you smell something, it's I don't know, if a painter sees a shadow, he's probably also get inspired and being drawn to it. The same goes for chefs. When we see food and when we smell food and think about food, I think we are driven in that, in our soul is being dragged towards it.
Another guest of the season is Andrei Ionita, one of the world's best solo cellists of his generation. And we were hearing him now in the background, playing Svante Henryson Blackrun from his album Oblique Strategies. And he also left a question for you.
Hello, this is Andrei Ionita, and my question for Eric Vildgaard is, was there any turning point in your chef's career where you decided to use your gut feeling?
There was one time, and I worked with a very good chef. Very, very good chef. And we're cooking his food, of course. At some point, we had a tasting, and people were tasting, and I was the only one who said, this is not yummy. Of course, he got upset, and he said, it's not about cooking yummy, because they had an agenda. They have an agenda. They're doing something which is greater than great. It's not to take anything away from what they're doing. But he said that to me, and I was like, Then I quit, because for me, it needs to be yummy. It cannot be, like we talked about, sterile and based on the ego and on a platform, where you want to communicate something which is more science and art than it's actually a dish of food. Because if it can be together, all the three elements, it's super good. You need to have yummy first, in my opinion. And that is not because I'm right. In my world, I'm right for my cooking. And that was when I felt it in my gut, where I was like, okay, I need to follow. I want to cook like French cooking. I'm Nordic raised, French trained, and Japanese inspired. So I want to cook that. And that was that time when I realized in my gut that I'm not destined to be cooking avant-garde in that sense, like avant-garde sometimes is misunderstood. I don't need to be a frontier of new cooking techniques. Should only apply techniques that will enhance the quality of the ingredient, not the other way around.
Yeah, and you were already talking about introducing or also bounding the cooking to science, but per se, right? When you were talking about the microbiota. And Eric, you are mentioning, of course, that the first element and the most important essential element is that food does translate and that it tastes yummy and that the qualities of the product are brought to the center light of the show, so to say, for the person that's going to eat it. So, but you say also that cooking should be done in a holistic way. What should be taken into account when you're cooking at your level?
Well, of course, if you look at it from a different perspective, then I cook with my inner feelings. So I cannot even go to describe how it works with me, because honestly, a frying pan talks to me in a language that very few people will understand. So it's hard for me to describe that. But in a holistic feeling, a meal should be comforting. It should be tasty. It should be based upon seasonality, the best ingredients. And of course, you should apply the technique which is needed for this to be reaching that level there above spoken. If you want to work with an onion, you can eat a raw onion. It's not nice. Yeah. So we cook the onion because then we bring forward the sweetness. Then you can make it into a soup. You can make it into a puree. You can make it into a crispy sweet onion. You can make it into a cup of lightly poached onion, which has lost the acidity and just kept the sweetness. So you will apply the technique that will bring the ingredient into the state that you want to express itself on the plate. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I mean with we shouldn't do a spuma of onion just because we have onion in the dish. If it doesn't do anything for the dish, why apply a technique?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if it does something great for the ingredient, let's do it. But is it necessary to take the world's best onion and then make it into a spuma, or should you just try to cook it gently and bring forward the natural sweetness?
Having turned your kitchen into a school of life, how has the role of mentor to young people, which you have taken on with passion and commitment, impacted you as a human being?
Over time, I've become more relaxed, I would say. Because when we first opened Culinary, it was ambitious. It was like, it had to be on my terms. Like, even though I tried to find balance, but a little bit manic, the most chefs are a little bit like out there on the spectrum for sure. But working with people and realizing that actually I might be good alone, but I'm great with a good team around. Then I also need to foster and nurture the team. So working with humans in that sense gives me a lot of inner peace because they teach me so much every day about myself. And they make me very strong. My team makes me very strong. I might have the ideas, but they execute them, and they follow me. And by having me that trust, I also trust them back. And that energy that we give each other is very part of the love story, as a driving force in the kitchen for sure. Of course, in the front of house, but I am not part of the front of house in the same way as my wife is. So it's more her role. But for me, working with and mentoring these young guys who comes with all the different approaches and ideas and all this, it's very giving. And it shapes me as a human being for sure.
If I imagine myself coming to work to your kitchen, it won't happen. Don't worry. But I mean, you're a big man with tattoos.
Yes.
Who has been feared, as you also recognized in the past. How are you able now to show appreciation for your team, still holding your position of authority and without being feared?
because I know the difference between fear and respect. Not many people know that. They mistake one and the other for each other, yeah? I know what fear is, and I know how, if I want to, how to intimidate my whole team. And I know if I yell and if I get angry, I know the impact it has on people. Because as you say, I'm a big guy with tattoos and people know about my past and I can get furious. I spent 30 years of my life trying to escape my inner feelings by building a shield. So I know exactly how tough I can be. That's how I can harness it and not be it. Because I've been to the dark side of the moon, as I said before. I don't have to go there anymore. I don't need that. So I think, as I said earlier, I also really highly appreciate my past a lot, because it has also given me guidance for who I don't want to be and giving me tools to work with myself in a way where I know what I'm capable of and I know how intimidating I can be. So I don't have to be it. It's very easy. It's very easy. We actually laugh a lot in the kitchen. We have good fun. We listen to music. We have a good social life in the kitchen. It's not like an old school. Of course, I get angry. Sometimes we work very closely together and it's like, as an example, today I come in and we have some lobsters, which has been blanched.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have left them in the water to cool them down. And we need to cool them down, but you don't leave them in the water because then they start, because of the osmosis, they start to take in water into the flesh. Huh?
Yeah.
It's like, also get I say, guys, what the fuck are you doing? They look at me, say, drowning the dead lobster. Sorry, chef, but then there's no more to it. Now they learned something, yeah?
They know.
They know now. And I got my frustration now by saying, hey, what are you doing? And they look at me and they know that when I say it like this, then, we made something wrong. But I don't have to pull them apart and scream at them. I don't have to say that. Just say, hey, what's going on here? Yeah.
When it comes to young chefs who are making their way on the gastronomic scene, and which I'm sure a lot of them will be hearing this podcast, what qualities do you admire the most?
I hire personalities. I know a lot of chefs, they focus on their knife skills and, and being correct. For me, it's more about being a good person. Being a good colleague is more important than being an actual perfect machine to cut brunoise. Because here we do brunoise. I will teach you how to cut brunoise. But I can only teach you if you are willing to absorb what I'm telling you and how I want things done. So good personalities are often the smaller egos, because our industry is full of big egos. Cooking industry is like, and it's a little bit tiring, with big egos. I do understand that we artists and but to a certain extent, we also need to embrace that we are cooking for people. There's two professions in the world which are the oldest. It's cooking, and the other one is something different. It's also
another one, yeah.
Another one which is very important need.
And like real artists, they really make it, as we were talking about Kirill Petrenko too and so on, or Leonardo da Vinci. It's not about them. It's about what they're creating and what they're expressing and communicating.
Exactly.
So you really know what something is fake, even if it seems technically perfect.
Hi, we would love to hear your comments and learn about what you see. Share your input at www.ccpodcast.com and follow us on social media. Oh, I almost forgot. To accompany us in this season's journey, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And now let's continue with Cici.
We have a love like no other love. Now we have more to share.
The impact of Ferran Adrià and Julie Soler's legacy at El Bulli is undeniable. Similarly, René Redzepi has been credited with revolutionizing Nordic cuisine and the world gastronomic scene. These chefs have influenced multiple generations of chefs and will continue to do so for years to come. There are schools, no doubt about it. Barcelona and Denmark have seen the rise of these visionaries. Where do you see or think the next gastronomic scene will be the next school to develop?
I think it can happen in many places because there is like this blooming international mood going around. But I really do believe that Turkish cuisine, the Middle East and Turkey and the Osman region is really booming. And, you see some extraordinary good chefs traveling out and coming stronger back home to Turkey. I think that is a very good guess that Turkish gastronomy will be booming in the future. And it's going to be because there is so much tradition and so much history in cooking. And you can say that like Nordic gastronomy, we don't have any cooking history. We are creating it right now by fine dining with Noma and, putting ourselves on the map. But they have like thousands of years of legacy towards gastronomy. From Iran, the Persian cuisine to the Osman cuisine and all the way over to China. So I think if we're going to look somewhere, it's not going to be within Europe in that sense. Turkey is half Europe, but they're also partly Asian, yeah? So I think we need to look in that direction because I think there's a lot of like Georgian cuisine, like all these things, which is nobody speaks about, but I see it's emerging. And I think that's going to be very interesting. Like really Armenian cuisine, Georgian, Turkish, all this region over there, such a boom.
And Eric, for you, what would be your next dream to conquer?
I don't think about conquering anything. I want to build my legacy. That's what I dream of. I want to be more immense than I am now. I want to create something for the future. And I want to do a little bit more work with myself. That's what I dream of.
If I may ask one more thing to finish our interview, would you be so kind as to share with us a simple but delicious recipe that can be prepared at home and enjoyed with family or friends? Something easy, please, that we can try at home.
Yeah, but let's do this. You have apples. We talked about this in the beginning. So you take 125 grams of butter, you take 125 grams of sugar, 250 grams of flour. You crumble that up into a crumble. You add a little bit of cinnamon, then you add a little bit of salt flakes into it, to that dough, like this crumble dough. Then you take your apples, you peel them, you cut them into wedges, marinate with a little bit of sugar, a little bit of cinnamon, and then you put them together with dried apricots or any dried fruit that you like. Put that like 1/3 of dried fruit, 2/3 of apples into a baking tray. Then you take your crumble, put it on top. You put this in a 175 degrees Celsius oven for around 40 to 45 minutes until golden and caramelized. Then you take it out and you serve that up with your best whipped cream or your best sour cream available. And then you have an apple crumble cake, which I very often do at home because it is easy, fast. You can create such memories with warm apple pie.
Well, thank you so much, Eric. I can't thank you enough. We talked about how precious time is. So thank you very, very much. I really appreciate the time you've given me today. Thank you for such a lovely, transparent, and at the same time powerful interview. It was truly incredible. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you to our listeners, wherever you are, for having allowed us to share time with you. Please do not forget to check this episode's description to follow Chef Eric Vildgaard's steps and to learn more about his restaurant Jordana and his new projects. You can also follow him on Instagram at Restaurant Jordana, Jordnaer. Thank you, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.